Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
Okay, I'm so sorry, sir. Is it possible for me to trouble you?
It doesn't matter for me.
Thank you so much. Okay, so today I would like to interview with you about your teaching experience. But first, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I can. First of all, let me introduce my identity. My name is Farin Baharudin. Today I work as a school supervisor in education, youth, and sport office in Toyonona Regency. Before this, I had been an English teacher for 26 years in junior high school at Wakai, Una district since in 1989 up to 2015.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Well, so my name is Nurfadilah, and I will be the interviewer for today. And right now, I am going to ask you a series of questions that are related to teaching activity. But before we start it, I am going to confirm that this interview will be divided into three sections. So the first section is pre-teaching, the second is while teaching, and the last is post-teaching. I hope you can answer it according to your teaching experience at school. Are you ready for the interview, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's start with pre-teaching sections. Okay, so for the question is, what steps do you take to prepare your lessons before teaching?
Okay, before I would like to answer the questions, it is necessary to know that I'm going to answer this interview question based on my experience over 12 years ago. However, I still remember what I did when I taught English lesson to my students. Relating to the steps taken in preparing my lesson before teaching, in my opinion, there are three important concepts in preparing the lesson. They are objective, process, and evaluation. Is mutually complementary and mutually correlated, and they cannot be separate each other. It's like a mechanism in learning system. Anyway, the three steps are crucial in preparing the lesson.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Okay, the next question is, how do you decide which teaching methods to use for a particular lesson?
According to me, to decide which teaching method used for a particular lesson, I think that the teacher should identify which teaching method will properly support the theme of content, the learning goals, the student need, student learning style, and learning environment. Its effectiveness depends on this alignment. Besides that, it is necessary to consider the teaching in isolated village is not the same as that in the city area. I think that today there is no best method, but substantially the good method is one that can meet with the situation and existing condition.
That's really great point, sir. Okay, now the next question. What materials do you usually gather for your lesson?
Yet, relating to the material, I usually gather the materials based on the objective in the lesson plan. Ideally, the material must provide the basis for what learners will experience and learn. And also, they support learning objective. For example, choose material that present information in variety of ways, using mixed media like text, video, and image, real world example, graph, etc., and suitable for student need and their learning style.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so now let's move on to the second sections, which is while teaching sections. Okay, so for the question is, what techniques do you use to keep students focused and motivated?
The technique is seen as a skillful or efficient way of doing or achieving something. In other words, is practically. When I taught my student about the topic of reading text, I use some technique in teaching reading comprehension in the classroom through reading aloud, use context, clues, use flashcard, finding the main idea every paragraph, answer a question. The innovative learning model is related to the technique, so automatically it keeps students focused and motivated. Usually focus depends on the more detailed material provided, the easier lesson to understand, while motivation refers to the student need fulfillment.
Okay, that's a great point, sir. Well, so the next question. What can you tell me about the challenge do you often face during the lesson, and how do you handle them?
Generally, the challenges that I faced during the lesson at the time was what strategy I should do to make the student comprehend the meaning of words and sentences in reading text. In that, at the time, national exam average score every year that were still low. For Indonesian students, they just answer an English multiple choice item correctly was still regarded as very difficult. Why? Because this case needs the prior knowledge or prerequisite knowledge. That's why it motivated me to find out the efficient ways in overcoming the challenges. To handle these challenges, I think that the student low result of exam average score is not my primary focus, but how I can empower my student to master the vocabulary, for example, through using the monolingual and bilingual dictionary to increase the vocabulary, make some small groups of students to translate the reading test, train them how to identify the main idea of paragraph, identify the use of collocation in sentences, as well as using flashcard and demonstrate the Asian form in that the student quickly understand the meaning.
That's really interesting, sir. Okay, so now we're going to move to the third sections, which is post-teaching sections. Okay, so for the question is, how do you reflect on your teaching after each lesson?
At the time, I frankly haven't used the certain instrument for reflecting myself, strong and weakness. But the high enthusiasm of students in taking English lesson can reflect that I have also strength even though the power is not yet optimal. And the weakness of my teaching skill is the student score related to the result of daily, semester, and national exam are still low.
Okay, so next question. Um, I'm curious to know which feedback from the students do you find most valuable?
Based on my experience, I found most valuable in teaching the English material when giving the challenge of personalized learning to my student in a speaking practice individual in front of the class. They are able to do it. I'm sure the students have the ability to speak English related to their personalized learning, their progress, and their potential to achieve their goals. So that, in my opinion, feedback is not just to say, good job, or say, that's wrong. It means that it's not praise or blame, but true feedback is critical. That is how the teacher empower the student to identify the strength and weakness with useful information about performance.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so actually, that was the last question for these interview sections. But before we end, I would like to ask, do you have any words or advice for our audience, sir?
Yes, I do. Okay, first of all, in this last interview, I don't teach you, but I just share my experience. My first message is especially for student teacher majoring in English that creating an effective lesson plan, an English teacher must comprehend that the success is the product of learning system. In a simple concept, systems consist of three main components. They are input, process, and output. In other words, teacher, student, lesson plan, goal, material, process, outcomes, learning media, motivation, evaluation are components of learning system. They are mutually influenced, mutually complementary. One component which does not work will affect the other ones. I think that's all for my answer.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Well, so thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thoughts with me. It's been a pleasure for me for learning more about your work and journey. And thank you so much for your time. And again, thank you so much for all the good answers. I really appreciate that. I'd like to see you in my next interview. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good time. Have a good learning.
Thank you, sir.